Emma Reed had lived in Portland for nearly 10 years, and the city had become both her comfort and her cage. She loved its calm rain, the smell of coffee on every corner, and the sound of people chatting softly in cafes. But lately, her life had fallen into a dull rhythm: work, dinner, sleep, repeat. She had friends, but no one who really saw her anymore. At 34, she had stopped believing in sudden magic. That evening, though, she decided to stop by her favorite coffee shop, Mipel and Steam, to escape the gray quiet of her apartment. The place was warm, dimly lit, filled with the soft hum of jazz. The smell of roasted beans wrapped around her like a blanket. Emma found her usual seat near the counter, ordered her regular latte, and opened her laptop to finish some design work. She didn't notice him at first, the young man by the window, with a worn leather notebook and a camera resting on the table. Beside him, it was only when he looked up and smiled at her that she caught his gaze. His smile wasn't bold or forced. It was easy, like sunlight breaking through clouds. He was probably in his mid-20s, tall, with tousled brown hair and curious eyes that seemed to notice everything. A few minutes later, the shop filled up quickly, and the barista asked if Emma would mind sharing her table. She looked up and found the same young man standing there. "Mind if I join you?" he asked politely, holding his coffee. "Not at all," she said, closing her laptop a little. He sat down, and within moments, conversation flowed like it had been waiting for both of them to arrive. His name was Liam Carter, a freelance photographer who'd just moved from Seattle. He talked about how he was exploring Portland for a new project, capturing ordinary things that look extraordinary when you notice them long enough. Emma smiled at that line. It sounded like something she might design into a poster. They talked about everything: favorite movies, how Portland's rain had a personality of its own, how both of them loved small places with big stories. Emma noticed how easily Liam laughed, how he listened carefully before he spoke. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was just present. It felt rare and genuine, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hours passed without them realizing. The cafe lights dimmed, the evening grew colder outside, and yet neither wanted to leave. Emma finally looked at the clock and gasped softly. "Wow, I didn't even notice the time." Liam smiled a little sheepishly. "Guess we got carried away," she laughed. "You make time disappear, you know that?" "Then maybe I should stay around longer," he replied with a teasing tone that made her blush slightly. When they walked out together, the air was cool and smelled like wet earth. The city glistened under the streetlights, rain still falling softly. They stood under the same umbrella for a moment, laughing as a gust of wind nearly turned it inside out. It felt strangely cinematic, like a scene from the kind of story Emma thought she'd outgrown. As they reached the corner where their paths split, Liam hesitated. "Hey, maybe I could show you some of my photos sometime. I'm working on a collection, People in the Rain. You'd fit right in that theme." Emma chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I don't know if I'm photogenic enough for that." "You'd be surprised," he said. And for a second, his voice was softer, more sincere. They exchanged numbers almost casually. But both felt something unspoken in that moment. Something light, but real. When Emma walked home alone, she couldn't stop smiling. She told herself it was just a nice evening with a friendly stranger. Nothing more. But her heart felt oddly warm. And she caught herself replaying his smile again and again, at home. She set her keys down and looked at her reflection in the mirror. "He's just younger, Emma. Don't get ahead of yourself," she whispered. She laughed at her own thought. Since when was happiness supposed to be logical? That night, she couldn't sleep. The rain kept tapping against the window, reminding her of their laughter under that umbrella. She reached for her phone once, then stopped. "No, it's too soon." She turned off the lamp and closed her eyes. But her mind refused to rest. The next morning, as she prepared for work, her phone buzzed with a message. "Liam, rainy day again? Guess the city wants us to have more coffee." She smiled without thinking and replied, "Same place, same time." His answer came within seconds. "Wouldn't miss it." Okay. Over the next few days, they met often. First for coffee, Then 4 walks in the park, where Liam would stop to take photos of the most ordinary things. A leaf floating in a puddle, a couple sharing a single scarf, a child's rain boots by a swing. Emma found herself fascinated by how he saw the world not as it was, but as it felt. Every time she was with him, the world seemed lighter. He asked about her work, her dreams, her childhood. He noticed things most people overlooked, the way she tapped her fingers when thinking, or how her voice softened when she talked about her late grandmother. It wasn't romantic yet. Not exactly, but there was something there. Something fragile and beautiful growing between them. One evening, they watched the sun disappear behind the river. Liam asked quietly, "Do you ever feel like you've been living on pause?" Emma looked at him, surprised. "All the time," she admitted. "I think I stopped expecting surprises." He smiled. "Maybe you just needed the right one." For a moment they both went silent. The air was calm, the sky painted golden gray. Emma's heart beat a little faster, and she didn't know why. She barely knew him. Yet it felt as if they'd been part of each other's lives for years. When she returned home that night, she realized how different she felt. Awake, curious, alive. Something had shifted quietly inside her. She didn't call it love. It was too early for that word. But she couldn't deny the warmth that had taken root in her heart. Days turned into weeks. And soon meeting Liam became part of her routine. They explored new cafes, old bookshops, and the city's hidden corners. The age gap crossed her mind a few times. But every time he looked at her with that genuine curiosity and kindness, the thought faded. What mattered wasn't the number of years between them, but the feeling that those hours together were exactly where she belonged. And though Emma didn't yet know it, this simple connection born out of rain, coffee, and chance was about to change everything she believed about love, timing, and the idea that age defines what the heart should want. Because sometimes, when two people truly see each other, the rest of the world simply falls away. And that night, as the rain whispered against her window again, Emma realized maybe age didn't matter after all. Not when something this real had begun. The days that followed moved faster than Emma expected. What began as casual meets over coffee quickly became something deeper, something that neither of them had planned but both quietly wanted. Every time Emma's phone lit up with Liam's name, she felt that small, involuntary smile spread across her face. He had a way of making her day brighter with just a message, a joke, a photo of the rain, or a line that made her pause and think. They met almost every evening after work. Sometimes they walked through the old neighborhoods of Portland, where ivy climbed the brick walls and the air smelled faintly of pine and coffee. Liam carried his camera everywhere, and Emma loved watching how he saw beauty in the most ordinary things. He'd stop suddenly, crouch near a puddle, and capture the reflection of lights dancing on the water. "Look," he'd say, showing her the screen. "The world's got a story everywhere. You just have to look closer." She admired that about him, his passion, his curiosity, the way he treated life as an open canvas. He made her remember parts of herself she'd forgotten. There was a time when she, too, used to see life that way before deadlines. Bills and heartbreak had dulled her sense of wonder. With Liam, everything felt lighter. She laughed more. She dreamed again, but not everyone saw it the same way. One Sunday afternoon, Emma met her best friend Jenna for lunch. They'd been friends since college, and Jenna was the kind of person who noticed things quickly. As soon as Emma mentioned Liam, Jenna raised an eyebrow. "He's cute, right?" Emma said, trying to sound casual. Jenna smiled, but there was a teasing tone in her voice. "He sounds great, Em, but how old is he?" 25, Emma replied, taking a sip of her coffee. Jenna blinked. "Oh, that's quite a gap." Emma frowned. 9 years isn't that much. "Not judging," Jenna said, leaning back. "But people talk, you know. Just be careful. Don't get too attached." Emma tried to laugh it off, but the comment stuck with her. That night, she stared at her ceiling, thinking about it. Was it strange? Liam never made her feel older. He treated her like an equal, someone he respected, admired. Still, the thought lingered, whispering doubt where there hadn't been any before. The next day, when Liam texted her, she hesitated before replying. He noticed it immediately. When they met later at the park, he looked at her with concern. "You seem quiet today," he said softly. She sighed, trying to sound casual. "It's nothing, just work stress." He smiled, but didn't believe her. "Emma, you don't have to hide what's really bothering you." His tone was calm, kind, the kind that made it hard to lie. She finally said someone mentioned the age thing. It just made me think. Maybe I'm being unrealistic. For a second, Liam was silent. Then he laughed gently. "Since when does love come with an age limit?" "It's not about love," she said quickly, her cheeks warming. "We're just friends." Something in his words broke through the wall she'd been building. She turned to face him. "You're wise for someone your age," she said with a small smile. He grinned. "And you're adventurous for someone yours." They both laughed, and the tension melted away. In that moment, Emma realized how easy it was to let the world's opinions steal your happiness, and how brave it was to ignore them. As weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. They started doing things that became theirs, small traditions that filled their days with meaning. Sunday walks by the river, Wednesday night movie marathons with cheap pizza, Liam teaching Emma how to use his camera, her laughter echoing when her pictures came out blurry. She called it artistic failure, and he called it accidental brilliance. One evening, they drove out to the coast, chasing the sunset. The road wound between tall trees, their branches painted gold by the fading light. Liam played old songs from his phone, humming along as he drove. When they reached the beach, the sky had turned orange and violet. The waves moved gently, reflecting the colors like melted glass. Emma stood by the water, shoes off, the cold sand beneath her feet. Liam came beside her, camera hanging loosely from his neck. "You know," he said quietly, "this is my favorite kind of moment, when the world is quiet and everything just feels right." She looked at him, then really looked. The way his hair caught the light, the calm in his eyes, the easy smile that seemed to reach all the way to his soul. She felt her heart swell with something she didn't want to name yet. But even in that perfect moment, part of her held back. She had been hurt before by promises that faded and people who changed their minds. Liam was kind and open, but what if time changed him too? What if the very thing that drew them together, their differences, was what would pull them apart? That thought haunted her quietly, even as their laughter filled the night air. Later, as they sat by a small bonfire, Liam handed her his jacket when the wind grew colder. "You're shivering," he said softly. She smiled, wrapping it around herself. "You always notice everything." "I notice you," he said, looking at her. She turned toward the fire, pretending to adjust the sleeves so he wouldn't see the emotion in her eyes. She wasn't used to being seen like that, not just for how she looked, but for who she was. They drove back in silence, the road glowing under the headlights. She glanced at him once, his focus steady on the road, a faint smile on his face as the radio played softly. And in that moment she realized something. She didn't feel older around him. She felt alive. That night when she got home, she stood by her window and watched the rain begin again. It was the same soft drizzle as the night they met. She thought of his words, "Since when do we need people to understand?" Maybe that was the truth she needed. Maybe love wasn't about who fit a checklist or what people thought made sense. Maybe it was about moments like these, honest, simple, fleeting, but real. She picked up her phone, hesitated, then typed, "Emma, next time I'm choosing the movie. No more sad endings," he replied almost instantly. "Liam, deal, but only if I can choose the popcorn flavor." She laughed quietly. And just like that, all her doubts faded for the night. Because sometimes it's not about the years you've lived, it's about the moments that make you feel young again. And Emma finally began to see that maybe, just maybe, age really didn't matter when two hearts spoke the same language. The morning felt heavy. The sky covered with thick clouds as Emma sat by her window, sipping her coffee. Everything in her life had started to feel brighter since Liam came into it, and that scared her. He had become part of her daily rhythm, like a song she didn't realize she was humming all the time. But just when she started to believe this could be real, the past decided to knock on her door again. Her phone buzzed. The name on the screen made her freeze. Mark. It had been 3 years since she last heard from him. 3 years since he walked away days before their wedding. For a moment, she thought it was a mistake, but the message was clear. "Hey, Emma, I'm back in town. Can we talk?" Her chest tightened. Mark had been her first great love, stable, successful, and safe. Losing him had broken something in her, something Liam had slowly started to heal without even trying. But now, memories she thought were gone came rushing back. She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she put the phone down and tried to breathe, but the calm that Liam had brought into her life suddenly felt fragile. Later that day, when she met Liam at their usual spot, the Riverside Cafe, he noticed her silence instantly. "Everything okay?" he asked, setting his coffee down. Emma forced a small smile. "Just a busy morning." He looked at her for a moment, eyes gentle but searching. "You're a bad liar, you know?" She sighed. "My ex reached out. He wants to meet." Liam nodded slowly, trying to keep his expression neutral. "Are you going to?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "Part of me thinks I should at least hear what he has to say." He looked down at his cup, silent for a few seconds, then said quietly, "If you need to, then do it. Just be sure you're ready for whatever comes with it." There was no anger in his voice, only quiet understanding. That made it harder. Emma wanted to tell him not to worry, that Mark meant nothing anymore. But deep down, she didn't know what she felt. She only knew that facing the past was something she couldn't avoid forever. 2 days later, she met Mark at a small restaurant downtown. He looked almost the same, polished, confident, his smile just as charming as before. For a moment, she felt like no time had passed. But as they talked, she realized how much she'd changed and how little he had. "I made mistakes," Mark said, his tone sincere. "I thought I needed something else, but all this time it's been you, Emma. I want to make things right." She looked at him, surprised. "After 3 years?" He nodded. "I was stupid. I guess I thought I was saving us from failure. But I was just running away." She didn't know what to say. A few months ago, she might have cried hearing those words. But now, sitting across from him, all she felt was distance. He talked about stability, marriage, and the future. All the things she used to dream about. Yet none of it stirred her heart the way a single glance from Liam did. When she got home that night, Liam was waiting outside her apartment, leaning against his car. "You met him," he said quietly. She nodded. "I did." He didn't ask for details, but his eyes said everything. "Did he ask you to go back?" "Do you want to?" She wanted to tell him that she didn't, that what she had with him was different, but her emotions were tangled. "He wants another chance," she finally said. Liam looked at her, his jaw tightening slightly. "And what do you want?" "I don't know," she whispered. "It's all confusing." He took a deep breath, then stepped closer. "I don't want to compete with your past, Emma, but I'll always choose you if you let me." Those words hit her harder than she expected. There was no begging, no drama, just quiet honesty. She looked at him and realized how different he was from anyone she'd known. Mark had loved her in a way that fit his world, structured, predictable. But Liam loved her in a way that felt alive, messy, real, unplanned. She opened her mouth to reply, but before she could, a drop of rain fell on her cheek, followed by another. Within seconds, the sky opened up, pouring rain over them both. Liam laughed softly. "Of course it rains now," he said, trying to lighten the moment. Emma couldn't help but laugh too, the tension easing slightly. They ran under the awning of a nearby bookstore, both soaked but smiling. For a moment, they just stood there, catching their breath, staring at each other. The rain drummed above them, the streetlights reflecting in Liam's eyes. "Do you ever feel like life keeps testing you just when you start to feel happy?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All the time," Liam replied. "But I think that's how it makes sure the happiness is real." That night, when Emma finally went inside, she couldn't stop thinking about those words. Maybe this was a test not just of her feelings but of her courage to choose what truly mattered. Days passed in a blur. Mark kept messaging, promising change, while Liam gave her space without pressure. His silence wasn't cold. It was respectful, patient. He didn't try to convince her. He trusted her heart to decide. That trust made her realize just how deeply he cared. One evening, she found herself at her design studio staring at an unfinished project. It was supposed to represent time and connection, but all she saw were broken shapes that didn't fit together. She sat there for hours thinking about the last few years, about Mark, who had left when things got hard, and Liam, who stayed even when things got confusing. By the time she packed up and left, the sun had set. The streets were quiet, the sky glowing faintly pink. Without thinking, her steps led her to the riverside, their spot. And there he was, sitting alone on the bench, his camera beside him. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," she replied, sitting beside him. For a few seconds, neither spoke. The sound of water and the soft rustle of leaves filled the silence. Then she said, "I met him again today. I told him I can't go back. I'm not the same person anymore." Liam didn't say anything. He just nodded slowly, his eyes gentle. Emma turned to him, her voice trembling slightly. "You were right. Love isn't about time or age. It's about who makes your heart feel like home." A small, relieved smile crossed his face. "So, what now?" A week passed since Emma told Mark it was over for good. The decision had brought her peace. Yet there was still a quiet ache inside her, not for what she had lost, but for what she might have ruined. She hadn't seen Liam since that evening by the river. He hadn't called, and she hadn't either. It wasn't pride keeping her away. It was fear. Fear that she had waited too long to tell him how she truly felt. Every morning she walked past the cafe where they used to meet, half hoping to see him, half scared that she wouldn't. The world felt slower without him. The rain still fell, but it didn't feel as comforting anymore. She missed their talks, his laughter, the way he noticed the little things that made her smile. More than anything, she missed the feeling of being understood without having to explain herself. One Thursday evening, as the sun began to fade, Emma finally gave in. She grabbed her coat and headed toward Maple and Steam, their place. The familiar bell chimed as she pushed the door open. Her eyes scanned the room, heart thudding faster with every step. And then there he was, sitting near the window, the same seat where she had first seen him months ago. With his notebook open and a cup of coffee beside him. For a moment she stood there silently, afraid to move, afraid he'd look up and turn away. But when his eyes met hers, everything else disappeared. His expression softened, not angry, not surprised, just quietly waiting. Emma walked over, trying to keep her voice steady. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, his tone gentle but cautious. "Didn't think I'd see you here again." "I wasn't sure I'd have the courage to come," she admitted, sitting down across from him. They both stayed quiet for a few seconds, the hum of soft music filling the air. Finally, Emma spoke. "I told Mark it's over. I realized he belonged to a part of my life that doesn't exist anymore." Liam nodded slightly, his gaze thoughtful. "That must have been hard." "It was," she said, taking a deep breath. "But not as hard as losing someone who made me believe in love again." He looked up then, meeting her eyes fully. "Emma," she reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly as it brushed his. "You were right," she whispered. "Love isn't about age. It's about how someone makes your heart feel alive. And you did that for me." Liam's expression softened completely. "I didn't want to pressure you," he said. "I just wanted you to be sure." "I am," she said firmly. "For the first time in a long time, I'm sure." The cafe lights glowed warmly, casting a soft golden hue over them. Outside, rain began to fall again, gentle, steady, like it always did when something important happened between them. It was as if the city itself remembered their story. They stayed there for hours, talking about everything they hadn't said before. Emma told him how she'd felt torn between what was expected and what was real. Liam shared how he'd almost left the city, thinking she needed time away from him. "I couldn't leave without seeing you again," he admitted. Emma smiled, tears filling her eyes. "I'm glad you didn't." When they finally stepped outside, the rain was falling harder, but neither cared. They walked side by side, sharing one umbrella, laughing as water dripped from the edges. Everything felt simple again. Not perfect, not easy, but right. They stopped near the bridge that overlooked the glowing river. The water reflected the city lights, rippling gently like a heartbeat. Liam turned to her. "Do you remember the first night we met? How could I forget?" She said with a soft laugh. "You told me I'd fit your photography theme. People in the rain." He grinned. "You still do? You've been my favorite photo ever since." Emma felt her heart swell. She didn't need fancy words or promises, just that one simple truth, that she mattered to him. She leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder. The city around them faded into a blur of rain and light. For the first time, she didn't care what people might say, how others might see them, or what age difference stood between them. What they had was something that didn't ask for permission. It simply was. As the night deepened, they walked aimlessly, talking about future plans. Liam wanted to travel to capture stories of people and places that told more truth than any textbook could. Emma told him she wanted to start her own design studio, something she'd always dreamed about but never dared to try. "You make it sound possible," she said. "That's because it is," he replied. "You just needed someone to remind you." They laughed, realizing how much they'd both grown, not just as a couple, but as people. Liam had found steadiness in her, and Emma had found freedom in him. Together, they balanced each other in ways neither had expected. Later, they stopped by a street vendor selling paper lanterns. The man smiled and handed them one, saying, "Make a wish and let it go." Emma held the lantern carefully, its soft light glowing between her palms. "What should we wish for?" she asked. Liam thought for a moment, then said, "Nothing. Let's just thank the universe for what we already have." Together, they released the lantern into the sky. It floated higher and higher until it was just a tiny golden dot, swallowed by the clouds. Emma watched it disappear, her heart full. When they finally reached her apartment, they paused by the door. Neither wanted to say goodbye. "Thank you," Emma said softly, "for waiting, for understanding, for being you." Liam smiled. "Thank you for finding your way back." Before stepping inside, Emma turned to look at him one last time. "You know," she said, her voice warm, "people always say age doesn't matter. I used to think it was just something people said to sound brave. But now I know it's real. Because what matters is how someone makes you feel, young, seen, alive." Liam's smile deepened. "Then I guess we're both doing something right." As she closed the door behind her, Emma leaned against it, smiling through tears she didn't bother to wipe away. She wasn't crying out of sadness. They were tears of peace, of knowing that sometimes love doesn't follow the rules. It simply finds the right people at the right time, no matter what the world thinks. The next morning, Emma woke to sunlight streaming through her window. The rain had finally stopped. On her phone was a photo from Liam, a picture of the lantern they had released, glowing softly against the dark sky, with a message beneath it. Some things don't need perfect timing. They just need the right hearts. Emma smiled, feeling warmth spread through her. Love wasn't about plans or years. It was about courage, the courage to choose happiness when it finally found you. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the city lights flickered on, Emma walked to the cafe again. Liam was waiting at their usual table, camera in hand, that familiar smile lighting up his face. She sat down across from him and said, "Let's make new memories, the kind that never fade." He nodded, eyes bright. "Together." And as laughter filled the air and the city buzzed softly around them, Emma knew this was exactly where she was meant to be, proof that when love is real, age truly doesn't matter.